Welcome to another After Action report for Trail Challenge. If you are part of Green Team or Red Team, I kindly request you to leave as this video is locked and that is your verbal warning to do so. If you are new to Trail Challenge, it is an ongoing event where teams try to take control of an entire map with the risk-like rules, but where the combat takes place on the actual maps by creations built by the teams. Each video will be mostly self-contained, however, it is recommended to go and watch the others. Blue team is so back. We did it. We are finally not on our last territory. So for the past few weeks, we kept getting stalemates and just barely staying alive on one territory. We finally captured another territory, which means if we lose, we aren't immediately out of the game. In technical terms, this is called defensive depth. How much ground can you lose and retreat without actually, losing? Now that we actually have some defensive depth, we can actually go and do stuff with a lot more safety. So for the creations that I ended up using, sadly, the team of creations that I made was intended to be a 3-person team, 2-person in a submarine with a gunner seat with a stabilized turret, and 1 person in an amphibious truck. But sadly, that plan did not go well because there were only 2 people that day. From this, I have, going forwards, made sure that all creations that are meant to defend the territory only need 2 people at minimum. So, what happened? I used a 2-person submarine in conjunction with my teammates, and basically all it was just a turret on top of a whole bunch of underwater propellers. The underwater propellers, they had a really good mobility. It's just general mobility, some very light, thin armor, because I needed to spend the complexity also on the amphibious truck. I would have done it differently if I had spent all 900 complexity I had onto the 1 submarine. But yeah, because I am going to be posting the creations these creations and you will be able to use them, I just want to go over a couple of small details. If you turn the turret more than 15 degrees off to either side, it gets jammed, or it has a chance of getting jammed. So while the turret is fully stabilized, and the driver is supposed to maintain the direction of the body towards the enemy to make sure that the frontal plate absorbs most of the damage. So it shouldn't be much of a concern, but you can't shoot stuff all around. I accepted this as a good trade-off because I was expecting to have to clear ice tunnels, which is basically the equivalent of trenches. You don't exactly have to check your back or your sides, and you don't necessarily have to turn quickly. You just have to blast in a very controlled direction, in a very precise manner, which is exactly what this gave me the ability to do. The way I make stabilizers is using gyros. You can dissect the creation later if you want, but the core concept is just using a very high amount of gyros, using their inherent stabilization effect, rather than making a logic-based stabilizer using systems such as angle sensors and compasses. Because the reason why I do this is because it's generally cheaper and more redundant. Instead of having multiple systems which need to all work perfectly and then interact with each other, any single gyro, even if another gyro gets damaged, it doesn't affect any of the other capabilities of the other gyros to stabilize it. So it's much easier to implement redundancy. Past that, the other interesting thing was that going up and down, I used a combination of flotation devices as well as underwater propellers, which meant that if you held the up button and let go, you would keep going up just at a slower pace. And if you held the down button, you would keep going down at a slower pace. It's pretty intuitive to control, but it just gives me more authority over the up and down control as a whole. Those are the two big things. The rest of it's pretty generic and simple. So it's pretty easy to use. Pretty much what happened is we managed to get through the entire ice tunnel section, managed to get to the moon pool under the dome. Red team at that time was using their standard creation of just a weird hollow tank with a whole bunch of blasters on it. So what we did was then just go up to the surface and blast him. Simple as that. After he was crippled, so this is why I didn't go all blasters. I specifically made the decision to add cannons because here's the thing. All explosions in the game go through blocks. Sorry, not blocks. They go through terrain. And because the concrete counted as terrain and the concrete ledge was pretty big, chances are he would have been on the concrete ledge. Therefore, for the final kill, we got it via doing it from a safe direction, aka we shot him through a wall. I did try this initially to blow him up, but we weren't accurate enough to get consistent hits to do this. So we had to just use the normal blasters, but that would have been the plan. I'm going to talk a little bit about the amphibious creation because that's also going to be underneath this video in case you want to use it. But because I didn't get a chance to show off how it was meant to be used, all you're going to have is this verbal explanation. So it's pretty complicated because it has multiple things. So it has suspension. It's really bad suspension that cannot take jumps, but what it can do is it can take bumps really well. The other two things it has are it can control whether or not it turns on its stabilizers. So normally it keeps itself level. However, it has the capability to turn that off. And when it does turn those stabilizers off, it tends to nose up when it's in the water. Also, all of the thrust is just forwards and backwards under the water. The only thing controlling your altitude in the water is the buoyancy system, and that's it. Meaning that if you use stabilizers to angle yourself up, press yourself up against a wall, then drop buoyancy by a little bit, which will make it nose up even more, you can get like 60 degrees you can get like an angle of 60 degrees. At that point, just maximize the buoyancy and put full force on the underwater propellers, and that can launch you out of the water and get you onto ledges that are like half a meter and sometimes even like a meter off the water level. The reason why I had this capability was to get onto the ice sheets outside the dome, because some of them, they have pretty sharp ledges that you need to hop onto. Other than that, the final detail on it is that it also had cannons and blasters, same system, and with the same concept behind them. And then it also had the ability to angle its suspension so that only the inside wheels are touching the ground. This is another thing that helps get its wheels onto the terrain a little bit easier, but more importantly, it helps with turning because it has a combination of tank steering and gyros. The tank steering combined with stabilizers does result in some weird effects, so be careful of that when going around hills and trying to turn. Other than that, the reason why I have that mode is to increase the turning speed. When you're on the ground, the front wheels and the back wheels, they have to slide from side to side. This is true for tank tracks as well. So to minimize that, you could make it stubbier and wider, which would reduce the amount of side-to-side sliding that the front and back tracks or wheels would need to do. Or you could just remove the front and back wheels temporarily. That's what I did to then remove that friction. So that's why it can turn faster when it raises itself up on that mode. So yeah, Blue finally had a victory. We are so back. And then there was more of the same, really. Just more of the same type of combat for green team and red team. I really don't have much to say there. Red team is still using their tank with a whole bunch of blasters inside of a cave to blast the aircraft that Green keeps bringing. Not much to say there, not much to show there either. I do have footage of both of the battles of defending and attacking that area, as you can see here. But yeah, other than those two things playing out, which again, not much to say on, that's it for this video. Also, I just want to say that I have seen the results on the community poll, and I will be making more of my own creations, more videos about my own creations soon.